So this is where he went. I have very interesting memories from this patch when they introduced the zone, and it was an interesting time because, like I said, at this point, people in the community were kind of ready to be done with Shadowlands. We were just kind of like feeling the fatigue at this point, and even though this patch did fix some things and improve some things, like you were now able to swap between covenants freely without having this restriction put on you. They freed up more of the conduits, and they were basically trying to listen to the player base about what the problems with Shadowlands were, and we're trying to fix that, where you could actually just go right over here and you could be able to like drop all of your anima, just right over here, as opposed to having to go back to your Covenant Order Hall. And like there was a number of things that they were trying to do in this patch to make Shadowlands more friendly to the player base, especially more alt-friendly. Believe it or not, this is when I actually was starting to get this character leveled and geared up so that she could be my alt. My Death Knight was still my main in Shadowlands at this point. But when we started to also do alt runs for the raid we're about to do today, this is the Demon Hunter that started to become my main alt and eventually became my main. And this raid has an interesting legacy, and I'm also basing... I sometimes will also reference what happened in the Race to World First, because to me, sometimes the Race to World First is part of the legacy and history of the raid. Like, to me, it's hard not to talk about the raid or remember the recollection and history about the raid and how it goes down in history, especially some of their bosses, without referencing what it was like for some of the top players in the world. And this was a raid that took a long time. This may have been one of the longest Race to World Firsts ever. This was not a forgiving, nice raid. There were multiple bosses in here that took a long time to bring down. And I'm mainly referencing what happened in the race. As far as for us, I mean, I'll try to talk about them and recollect them as much as I can as we go through it. Actually, if I recall... By the way, yes, I got a nice paycheck recently, so I set aside some of that to grab the Brutosaur, so I do now finally have it. I don't want to talk about this issue in this video, because that's not what this video is about. If you're wanting my thoughts on it, I mean, I do agree with some of the folks that getting this for... in what's the gold equivalent, because again, people were saying, look, you could just simply use gold to buy it by simply, if you have enough gold, you could just put it towards tokens, towards getting this mount, as opposed to just paying real money for it. And if you compare that to the amount of gold you had to get for the previous Brutosaur, it's actually a discount, a bargain price. But am I okay with the idea of us now having to pay real money for some of these mounts? Not really, because again, it goes back into that microtransaction area of discussion. But again, I don't want to talk too much about this. What I was going to bring up is that one of the reasons why I think I want to do this on Heroic, and if we were to compare the sets from the previous two raids, Nathria had some interesting looking sets. This one, I was like, what the heck is this? You know, this looked like something out of... This looks like a witch hunter in Warhammer. You know, with the hat. Like, that's what this makes me think of. And this, I mean, this just looks like very much like domination and the whole jailer aesthetic and the maw aesthetic with skulls and chains and spikes. And I'm like, okay, I buy it. And then we get to Sepulcher. What the heck is this? I feel like a dark helmet. What the heck am I looking at? I think the normal one is actually marked as my favorite here. I don't even know why. But you can see most of the pieces for my Demon Hunter here on Heroic I do not have. I mean, I will say this. I like the color scheme for this one. The red one. I think it's not bad. Now, let's compare this. Because I just want to confirm a suspicion I have. Where is it? Well, where's Sepulcher? Whoop. There it is. Okay, so yeah, this is when they actually started to do the whole... We're going to go back to class tier sets. This was when they actually reintroduced tier sets back into the game. And needless to say, this was something that a lot of players were happy about because a lot of players did miss tier sets. So, when it came to, say... Because, yeah, we had the Shadowlands legendary powers, but then we got tier sets again. And from what I recall... No, it's not that. Yeah, here it was, right here. At least, no, I take that back. No, this is the current one. No, hold on. Shadowlands. Why is it not... Okay, for some reason it's not letting me show you. This is the current tier set that I'm wearing right now. This is not what I'm trying to show you. Actually, let me just see if I can pull it up here in the raid guide here. Well, those are those pieces there. I don't think there was a tier set here on its own that I could look at to show you what it was like. I actually don't even remember what the tier set actually did. Well, if we get a piece, I'll open it and we can take a look at it to see what it did. But needless to say, the idea that tier sets, which used to be a thing and then they removed from the game and they were bringing back, was a big, like, yeah, from the player base. Like I said, they were trying to do a number of things here to try and get the player base to actually, like, be in a more happy spot. Is probably the way I want to put that. Because, yeah, a lot of us were not too happy with the way things had been going with this expansion. And here we were, the big final raid, the big final patch. From the beginning, they said that the final boss of this expansion would be the Jailer. And at the time, we didn't really know much about the Jailer. And at this point, we were not really all that enthused to face him. I'm sorry. I'm going to rant about this when we get to the Jailer, especially after we beat him. Because, oh my gosh. Like, I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were going to somehow make this work until we defeated the Jailer. And it was revealed what he really was. And I was like, okay, you've lost me now. But again, I will save that for when we get there. But you can already see right from the get-go a lot of the aesthetic that we saw. Remember how I said that the Guardian in Sanctum was basically a tease for what we were going to be dealing with later? And it was. This was basically something left over from Zereth Mortis. And at the time, we were like, where did this thing come from? What is it from? What's that artifact that's talking to it? Well, Pocopoc. Now we have our own, where he's like, hello, I'm your little friend. So, you know, we had this whole patch learning about this place and what it was, and I'll be honest, guys, a lot of this just, for some reason, is just not really clicking with me. I think a lot of it just bothers me that we come here, we find out more about this, and this just feels so out of place. Like, this just seems, I don't know. It doesn't quite work for me in terms of what I thought we were going to be dealing with or encountering when we went to the Shadowlands of Warcraft, you know? I think I forgot to read the summaries of the previous raids. I'll just go ahead and read it for this one. The Jailer has breached the Sepulcher, the mysterious heart of the Shadowlands. Should he control its primordial power, he will reshape the cosmos with death at the fore. As Zoval prepares to dominate reality, champions of Azeroth charge forth to stop him. Will the resolve outmatch his? Find out today! On this exciting episode! Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, because I wanted to do that as a tribute to the gentleman who used to do that for Dragon Ball Z, since I heard that he recently passed away. So, rest in peace, sir.
The sepulcher of the first ones. Within this sacred space, the very fabric of the afterlives is woven.
Heaven Blade, hold here. The entrance lies ahead. Be wary. The defenses protecting the Sepulcher's secrets will be unlike any you have encountered before.
The mortal mind could never hope to comprehend its mysteries, but you must press onward and thwart the jailer's treachery.
I want you to take note of who is here. Now, Firim is someone we actually met during the story of this patch, so he's new. Obviously, Bolvar, Jaina, and Thrall are here. Uther, yes, Uther, and Sylvanas are here. By the way, I forgot to talk about how Sylvanas, obviously had what was her soul restored to her, and that's why her eyes are back to their blue, and they tried to deal with this in a cutscene after the raid where Uther is trying to help her kind of reconnect or make terms or come to peace with what she did, that it was literally two different versions of her. The version without her soul is the version that did the horrible things she did, including the burning of Teldrassil, and the real Sylvanas would never have done that, and she was appalled by what this other version of her had done and had a hard time accepting it, and Uther was trying to help her kind of just come to be like, look, it's just something you're going to have to live with, and there's not necessarily a redemption or forgiveness for what you've done and such, and they were trying to basically make that whole thing work. We, of course, would get more of a follow-up to this after this raid with what was basically considered the trial of Sylvanas Windrunner, where she has basically been sentenced to be in the Maw, helping recover all the souls that she banished to the Maw for the jailer. It's that whole thing. But yeah, before that could happen, she is here to help us against the jailer. You'll note that she's actually back to basically her old gear. It looks a little different. It's colored a little differently. I could even pull it up and compare. You can see here, it's basically the same in terms of you'll note the little tiny differences there. Color, this one had skulls on it, that one does not. The gloves are different. Yeah, it's a similar type of outfit to this, but it's different. What's funny is she still has that bow and not one of her old bows, which I find amusing that she would still have this bow after we basically took it, because it dropped for us. Because it's not like they haven't done this before. They did this with Illidan. When he dropped the Warglaives of Azeroth for us in Burning Crusade, when he came back in Legion, he had to have new Warglaives because we took the old ones. They also did this with Kael'thas in Magister's Terrace, where when we faced him, he only had 2 of those orbs on his shoulders because we took the 3rd one. So I just find it amusing that they didn't just give Sylvanas a new bow, since we got it as a drop in the raid. But anyways. So yeah, we're going to be encountering quite a few of these trash that are basically intruders detected. Must eliminate intruders.
I don't have a target.
I'm a little surprised my I-beam didn't hit him there. I thought it was a little wider than that. So this upcoming encounter I find funny because I actually think it's faster to do on Mythic than I do on normal, because on Mythic it immediately, you know, comes out of there. Whereas in normal, I had to do the whole actual encounter legit in order to get him to spawn out. But in Mythic, he just comes right out, so you can just go ahead and kill him. So I found it to be faster on Mythic. And it's basically going to feel the same on Heroic. But yes, that ball right there, that's the boss. The funny thing is, though, a whole bunch of this encounter is actually with all the trash that you see right here. Once you pull that custodian right there, the encounter starts. The Eternal Guardian lies in wait, keeping a timeless vigil over the entrance to the Sepulcher of the First Ones. So, this first encounter, like, I'll admit, this is one of my least favorite first boss encounters in a raid, because, well,
Volatile Matrium.
this is basically an ad fight with a decent amount of coordination.
Prefabricated Sentry. Volatile Matrium. Force Field. Refracted Blast. Dear Solution. Prefabricated Sentry.
We're going to be here a little while.
Refracted Blast. Dissonance. Dissonance. Volatile Matrium. Wave of Disintegration.
What I recall are basically our alts only touch normal. We never had our alts go into heroic. We just kept our mains in here. That's why my Demon Hunter only has the normal set almost entirely done, while the heroic set has mostly not been done.
Dissonance. Dissonance.
Meanwhile, my Death Knight basically had a whole bunch of it.
Exposed Core.
Because, of course, my Death Knight was still my main here. But yeah, this isn't exactly a fun encounter, because, I don't know about you, but this whole thing of fighting trash and such, I just find boring. You know? We are, like, literally standing here waiting for more trash to spawn, and then for those things to get destroyed so we can grab these, and we get very slowed. I will say this, as a Demon Hunter, it's nice to be able to double jump and dash while holding this, and then we toss it in.
Refracted Blast. Prefabricated Sentry.
It is funny that apparently that thing could actually run over here. I'm like, oh hey, thanks for bringing the core just right here.
Refracted Blast. Dissonance.
So you have to get 3 of these tossed in order to get him to spawn. Now you'll notice that little barrier around him. That's basically because what would happen is the Guardian would put out this big AoE that we had to stand in this barrier here to protect ourselves, otherwise we were basically dead. I'm pretty sure that once the core temperature reached 100, that is when he would do the big AoE. But you can just see, like, there's like all the ads in the room are spawning we have to deal with. Each did different things that we had to deal with, and yeah, I'm sorry, like, I remember just feeling bored in this fight. Like, oh my gosh, can we just get the Guardian to spawn so we can actually fight the boss?
Exposed Core. Force Field.
So yeah, that's the big explosion damage that's going on. That's why we had to go into the Force Field. To reduce the damage we took by 90%.
Prefabricated Sentry. Dear Solution.
Come here. Come closer. Makes it less of a run over here. Grab the core, toss it in, and then get out of the way.
Refracted Blast.
because I think one time I stood right there and he rolled on top of me and I died.
Dissonance.
So now we start fighting the Guardian. Oh, and get used to those sounds that they're making. You're going to hear that a lot in this raid.
Refracted blast.
A lot of the bosses don't really talk. They just make sounds.
Dissolution.
So we're just kind of like doing this normal fight, trying to get his health down. And then, I believe, once he gets it... Alright, that's when he gets into what is considered the self-destruct. This is when you pop Bloodlust, because then he's doing this where he's going to be having an explosion go off every, like, few seconds. Let's see, I believe it's called... Yeah, Core Overload. He overloads his core as a final act to defend the Sepulcher. Every 3 seconds, it inflicts damage to all players, and the damage is increased by 25% every 3 seconds. So this is why this was then a DPS check at the end of the fight.
The way opens. Step carefully. Mortals were never meant to enter this sacred ground. You will soon witness events that expand your understanding of existence. Some may even unravel your sense of reality, sending you spiraling into insanity. Let's not dawdle.
Your efforts are meaningless, mortals. The pattern is flawed. Reality must be remade. I will see it done. Death comes for the soul of your world. Much has been asked. More will be required.
It doesn't say that my warband actually completed... Alright, hold on. Well, I'll take a look at the map when we get past this. This was another bit of a gauntlet right here. You see the subjugator here? Yeah, this was one of those leads. It was like, oh gosh! Like, now we have to deal with this guy. Because we've gone from dealing with forces of the Sepulcher, and the first ones, to now forces of the Jailer, who are like, we will stop you from interfering with our master's plan. Yeah, good luck with that, Bolvar.
Ha! You have discovered an ancient translocator. With it, you can access the sacred pattern and move through it. The mysteries of the Sepulcher are yours to unlock. I shall be taking extensive notes.
Well, have fun with that. Alright, so... Alright, here we go. So, normally, this would not be accessible right now until I had done the other portions of the raid. Because that's actually the continuation. Basically, the skip allows us to skip this whole portion and this whole portion and just go straight here to here. And even though it says my warband has not completed the skip quest, I have a feeling if I recall, I think we did. So that's why it's already unlocked for me here, but whatever. Obviously, I'm not going to do the skip because I'm trying to show you guys the entire raid. So we are now going to head to the portion that we usually always went to. Hi, Halandris. We will see him later, and oh boy. Oh boy, Halandris. We'll get there, we'll get there. Also, you'll notice there's some Cartel Zai here. You're going to see a familiar face from Nathria in this raid. By the way, this right here hurt. You couldn't just run through here. So you'll notice all this trash here. We would try and run through here. This hurt. If we were trying to sneak past some of these, we just couldn't help but accidentally aggro some of these things. It just kind of couldn't be helped. A devouring pit? For what, I wonder? Oh, well, let's go ahead and just clear this trash. I'm sure there's nothing here that it could possibly, like, reveal or anything, right? Hello? Skolex, the insatiable ravener. With the Sepulcher the first ones vulnerable, devourers swarm in to feed their hunger. Among these aberrations is the ravenous Skolex, as the great worm consumes vast amounts of ephemera. The Sepulcher is thrown out of balance and threatens to collapse upon itself. So this fight... if I recall, this was not a hard DPS check fight, but it did take a bit of coordination in terms of we had to make sure we knew where to stand. I'll try to show it off as much as I can. You'll notice he has a 6-minute berserk timer.
Destroy. Devouring blood. Destroy.
I'm curious how some of his mechanics work when it's just by myself.
Destroy.
Oh, am I? Oh, is it because I'm not in melee range?
Rift Maw.
I think so.
Rend.
I was wondering what that destroy was, and I realized, oh, it's because I wasn't in melee. That's why.
Reg.
Alright, that right there, I remember that. Everyone had to move out of the way of that one. Yeah.
Devouring.
So as a DK who mained this, that right there was always annoying because we always had to make sure we watched our feet, and when it was going to hit us, we had to get out of the way.
Devouring blood. Rift Maw. Destroy. Devouring blood. Destroy.
I'm in melee range. Why are you casting Destroy?
Devouring blood.
Apparently the melee range on this fight was very short because I back up a little bit and all of a sudden he's like, Destroy! I'm like,
Devouring blood.
Skolex, I'm literally standing right next to you.
Rift Maw.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I can actually show off some of the mechanics of this because I'm by myself. But he had this other mechanic where he would tunnel underground and we had to stand in a certain spot where he was going to show up, otherwise it would be a wipe.
Reg. Devouring blood.
But yeah, there's not really like too many complex mechanics when it comes to this fight.
Dust flail.
It was like, okay, lust on pull, and we had to avoid getting hit, watch your feet, avoid the cone, stand where he emerges, and that was a bit, essentially it. That was basically it.
Dust flail.
He actually has quite a bit of health here.
Devouring blood.
Okay.
Many deals for a friend of the Grumbles.
Genesis modes that were part of crafting in Shadowlands. I remember that.
Farewell, friend of the Grumbles.
Alright, so we can't even go that way until we deal with the next boss. So, Skolex is like, okay, he's just like a worm here that we have to do a DPS check against. The next fight, though, oof, well, I mentioned that we have a familiar face. Well, again, we have members of the Cartel Xi here. You remember who else we encountered in Castle Nathria, who happens to also be part of the Cartel Xi? Alright, let's just go ahead and clear this trash. Hello, Zymox.
More Walker. Is there no end to your incessant hounding?
After his defeat in Castle Nathria, Artificer Zymox sank back into the shadows to plot his next heist. With the Sepulcher of the First Ones now vulnerable, Zymox has summoned the full might of the Xi Cartel to plunder the ancient knowledge and powerful relics buried there. Oh my goodness, this fight. This fight was a bit more involved. You remember those wormholes we had to deal with in the fight in Nathria? Well, we had to do that kind of again, but differently this time. You'll also notice over there's some more members of Cartel Xi. Now, in Heroic, they're not as involved as they are in Mythic. I found this out when I did this in Mythic, that over there they started doing more, and I was like, wait a minute, did I have to actually like go teleport over there and do stuff? It's the kind of thing that makes me want to go watch what the World First Kill, or rewatch some of the stuff from the Race to World First, to really see what this was like in Mythic back in the day.
I am past my breaking point!
So of course we had more traps to deal with this as well.
Amazing how you stumble through space and time!
Hyper Light Sparnova.
We had to drop wormholes in certain spots because, well...
Close, so you can die!
Stasis trap.
Your agony amuses me.
There's one of those traps.
Unavoidable.
So if you've been doing the, you see that ring there? So we would have to use that wormhole. We'd have to put one like in here and one on the outside. If you have been doing Queen Ansarek recently and you've been doing the final phase with the portals, this is going to feel very familiar.
The stasis field should keep you busy.
Because it's essentially the same thing where he does this ring that if it hits you, you're basically dead. So we had to use these wormholes to teleport to avoid getting hit by those rings. One here on the outside and then one on the inside. So we would be like, oh, and then teleport to the one on the inside to avoid getting hit by that ring. Sometimes, however, the ring would come from the outside. And we had to make sure we got to the inside one first, and then teleport to the one on the outside, basically.
Your agony amuses me.
Now, it's not just him we're facing, though.
Unavoidable. Reveal your secrets to me.
So then he spawns ads from the Cartel Xi. Acolytes, Spellslingers. And we had to deal with these guys. To deal with them again, and now we get to stage 2. Which would also add this thing called the Gunship Barrage, which would bombard the area.
Hyper Light Sparnova.
So we had to deal with these traps, we had to drop the wormholes in correct spaces.
I'll not even bear a spark of my genius. The stasis field should keep you busy.
So one of the ways as a DK that I could help kind of deal with some of these traps was Icebound Fortitude, because of course it was a stun. You'll notice there's the ring going up. So then there's the ring from the outside coming towards the inside. So again, we'd have to put the wormhole here and one outside. So that way when it does that, we would just, oh, wormhole and we're fine. There's a bomb that would, I think, usually get put on a tank or somebody else, and they had to run away from the raid to get it out.
Your agony amuses me. Your destruction is unavoidable. Ephemera is unbridled power.
I am a little amused that the Cartel Xi is here with their gunship. Like, I know the Alliance has gunships, but at the same time, I'm looking at that, I'm like, I didn't know that was something that cartels used.
Dimensional
It is amusing
tier.
how you stumble through space and time.
And that's
Hyper
basically the
Light
fight.
Supernova.
He also has Hyperlight Spark Nova, you saw that? That was something that would bounce around players, so he would cast that, and you had to make sure we were spread so it wouldn't get a whole bunch of players, because if it kept hitting you, I think you would take more damage from it, and yeah, you didn't want to keep spreading it around the raid.
Wait! We can make a deal.
And now this time we actually do kill him. He doesn't run away, this time we actually kill him. I will say, some of the weapons in here do look kind of cool. I mean, look at that. I think that looks cool. So now we've dealt with those two, now we get to open up this way over here. And remember how I said we would see a certain someone named Halandris later?
first.
Well... You'll also notice these right here. Yeah, those, you didn't really want to step into those. There he goes. Halandris. Oh my goodness, Halandris. For eons, Halandris the Reclaimer traversed the cliffs of the Sepulcher the First Ones, fulfilling its sacred purpose of reclaiming ephemera and returning it to the Great Cycle. With intruders now throwing this pattern into anarchy, the Ancient Keeper will do whatever it must to maintain order. Oh man, does this boss have quite the legacy. Especially when it came to the race to world first. So, usually when a race world first is about to start, sometimes after we go through a raid on normal and heroic before they open it up to mythic, we tend to throw around predictions on which bosses are going to be like the walls in the race. Where we'll like, oh man, this boss right here, this is the boss that's going to give people a hard time. Like recently with Narubar Palace, we were predicting that Princess was going to be, the Nexus Princess was going to be one of those big walls in the raid. And we were right. It took over 300 pulls before they finally downed her, and they had to one-tank that boss just to make the check. This boss, a lot of people did not predict how much of a wall this boss was going to be. I'm just going to double check the facts here. So I didn't talk about this when we did the Crucible, the First Storms, but Unat actually has the highest pull count for a world first in history. 731 pulls before Unat was finally killed in Crucible Storms in the Race to World First. Meanwhile, Halandris... Now it says 357. And I thought it was a bit more than that, but maybe not. But let's just say that he was a very unexpected wall to run into this raid. Like, when we were looking at this raid in terms of who we thought walls would be, We did think that Anduin, we'll talk about him later, was going to be a wall. But... And possibly, like, Lords of Dread and Rygalon, but Halandris? Not many people predicted Halandris was going to take that much time and that many pulls to pull off getting the kill on. You'll notice the area underneath Halandris has that effect. That's because you absolutely could not stand underneath it. This is a long fight, and part of it, well, you'll notice this whole path right here, right? This whole path is literally part of the entire encounter. Now, on Heroic, well, there were a number of mechanics that were involved. In Mythic, there were even more so. That it's one of the reasons why it took so long for anybody to get the kill on him in the Race to World First back in the day. So you'll see that spinning around. That will sometimes do that. You'll notice he is saying something, but he's doing it in sounds. The cycle is interrupted. Aberrations cannot be tolerated. But he's going... Whoop, 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 whoop.
Crushing Prism.
Yeah, you're basically seeing of all the mechanics on me here. Which is stuff that the tanks had to deal with, obviously. There were some other things here, like you'll notice these are
Shattered Prism.
moving forward towards the boss. Also, those orbs right there as well.
Earthbreaker Missiles.
You'll notice I can knock it back, right?
Crushing Prism.
There's a reason for that. Also, you notice that happens there. That switches back and forth. On Mythic, I think, like, all of them are constantly doing that, or most of them are.
Reclaim.
So, if we don't get those orbs and prevent it from reaching the middle,
Prism. Shattered Prism.
look at what happens. You saw that? Yeah. So he's doing Reclaim, which is basically, he gets a big shield on him, and you have to break the shield, because otherwise he just is sucking people in, which, if you get pulled into the middle...
Reclaim.
You take quite a bit more damage.
Planet
And if he sucks in those orbs, it would do a big explosion that... It was basically a wipe at that point.
Earthbreaker Missiles.
So he doesn't really move here until you get him to a certain portion of life.
Crushing Prism. Shattered Prism. Shattered Prism. Shattered Prism. Shattered Prism.
Yeah, that sound he's making just now. Whoa, 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 whoa. I heard that so much. But yeah, he gets up and now he's walking to a different portion. This is when these walls come down. And we're having to fight him along the way because he has a lot of health.
Shattered.
We have to avoid that. Because if we stood in it... Oh, we got knocked away.
Prism.
And then it does that.
Earthbreaker
We had this
Missile.
prism on us where we had to try and make sure that we were not standing amongst other players to get that hit on them, because that would hurt.
Shattered. Crushing Prism.
And he would do Shatter over there as well. So then he would go to this next area and basically plant himself on the ground. You'll notice that when he did that with his feet, you would take quite a bit of damage, so basically you had to stand away from him when he did that.
Seismic Tremors.
Obviously you don't want to stand in the path of those, and in the path of those. Tons of stuff to pay attention to. And this is just on Heroic. And then he also fired missiles.
Crushing Prism.
That right there. There was a ton when it came to this boss. And not many people thought it was going to be this much of a wall.
Crushing Prism. Shattered Prism.
But trust me when I say that the mythic version of this fight was insane.
Crushing Prism.
Which is one of the reasons why it took Liquid and others quite a while to take him down before he had to get some significant nerfs.
Crushing prism. Earthbreaker missiles.
But yeah, this was a wall that we spent a lot of time on this boss as well. Basically, everybody had to spend time on this boss.
Shatter.
So the sounds that Halandris is making, easy for me to say. A lot of these sounds have kind of been stuck in my head for a few years. Because I remember what it was like hearing these sounds all the time when we had to keep fighting this boss, because
Prism. Shatter.
yeah, we had quite a few wipes against this boss. He was an interesting fight to do progression on, because as you can see, there was a lot of things we had to make sure we were doing correctly, otherwise,
Crushing
nope.
prism. Shatter.
So now we get to the final portion of the fight. This is where we basically are like having to make sure that we finish him off.
Eternity Overdrive.
So this is when you start to do some other stuff here.
Planet Cracker Beam.
Turn the overdrive, look at that with all the beams going off there. So quick, stay in between all these. Reclamation form. Heavily pulling the orbs in. So you had to make sure also that you were making sure that those did not go in, but you had to be careful.
Earthbreaker missile.
But yeah, you'll notice every time that goes off, it stacks. So if it started to get this high, it was basically done. You were basically wiping. Planet Cracker Beam, that's part of the heroic one mechanics here. So yeah, you can see why by the time you got to this part, it was like, quick, pop Bloodlust, quick, finish him.
You have discovered a light step cipher. If you discover another cipher that allows traversal, we may be able to reach the captive king.
So yeah, after we take him down, he says, acceptable damage has been inflicted, my purpose resumes. So we don't destroy him, he just teleports away and he just wanders off to go resume his duties. Farewell, Halandris. You will forever be remembered as one of the most famous walls in Race to World First history. You'll even notice that he was at low health, but he's just slowly rebuilding himself and getting his health back. Alright, so we got the obscured fractal prism. I don't even really see it. Oh, that's because I can't wield offhands. Apparently. Alright. And we got tier pieces. All right, which of the warriors and monks and any rogues that we need for this? Hunters, mages, druids. We have a tier piece for you. Legs. Oh, hey, demon hunter. Don't mind if I do. Thank you. So now I can actually show you what this tier set did back then. So for the Demon Hunter, it was increased blade damage and Chaos Strike damage by 20%, and Metamorphosis duration was increased by 6 seconds. Every 60 Fury that you consumed reduced the cooldown of Metamorphosis. So needless to say, this was a bit of a fun set to get as a Demon Hunter back then, because it was like, oh hey, I get to be in meta a lot longer, and I get to reduce the cooldown. How nice, and use it more often. Isn't that great? I'm going to put these here and mail them to my alts. I'll do that later. I'm not going to do that now on camera. I'll do that once I collect the rest of them.
Many farewells.
Alright, so now... Okay, we dealt with Halandras, so we are now done with this section of the map here. So now we need to head over to here. But yeah, basically the ones that would drop the tier pieces were Halandras, the final boss in the next wing that we're going to be heading towards, Anduin, and the couple of bosses after that. So those are the bosses you would have to go and focus on if you wanted to collect your tier pieces. Also, this was the patch where they introduced the idea of the catalyst. The idea that you could get a regular piece and then just turn it into a tier piece. They had the vault going back to the days of BFA, but the catalyst was introduced in this patch specifically.
I'm out of range.
Huh.
I need to get closer.
Let's go ahead and clear that up.
I need a target.
Well, this was always a fun little platform because we would always usually get some other ones pulled from the other platforms, and this could get a bit messy. And of course, fighting all these guys, heading towards the next boss. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce her name here. Dominated by the jailer. Daosegne? The Fallen Oracle leads the Mossworn in a battle to gain control of the Forge of Afterlives. The jailer plans to use its power to unleash an eternity of torment upon all of reality. So this fight was interesting, kind of a combination of DPS checks of certain portions of the fight, while basically, coordinating amongst evading certain mechanics.
His voice must prevail.
Disintegration Halo, Domination 4. Disintegration Halo, Obliteration Heart.
So that cone we had to evade. The ring there. I'm trying to remember what exactly we had to do to either deal with that ring or evade it. Also barrage here. That would hurt. I actually popped Blur to make sure it wouldn't hurt that much.
Obliteration Arc.
But yeah, you see that arc? Yeah.
Staggering Barge. Teleport.
Oh, I think I know what it was. The first time, it's okay, one ring isn't too bad. Also, you'll see this here. Pulsing damage. And we basically had to take that shield down to stop it. So that was the DPS. We were like, okay, quick, you use your cooldowns there.
Obliteration Halo, Domination 4.
So here is where multiple rings would now start to come out. The first one, that's not bad. because we get this here. Now, what would happen is that then another Halo would come out. So you had to make sure this was gone by the time that next Halo came out.
Staggering barrage.
Tempo.
Domination 4.
So I think the one where she does like multiple halos, like that would happen later in the fight if we just took too long.
Obliteration arc.
Obliteration arc.
But yeah, this is mainly the fight here. Like evading the arc, dealing with the halos, getting her shield down so she wouldn't burst us down with damage, dealing with the ads she would summon, managing the barrage here, because you had to pop a defensive. Like, you'll see, that's still hurting me at this level.
Domination core. Disintegration halo. Obliteration arc.
So there's one, and then another halo right away. Bam! If you took those, you were basically dead.
Staggering barrage.
Tempo.
But yeah, not exactly one of my favorite fights in this raid.
Of the first ones must endure.
Futile. No power you possess can stop what is coming.
But yeah, for me, it was honestly one of the least memorable fights in this raid. I was like, yeah, okay. I don't recall that fight giving us too much trouble, honestly. The only time it was an issue is if we were having trouble evading the second Halo. But that would honestly just be kind of a positioning thing at that point. So we had to fight through all that big trash there to get in here. Lyovum. Hello there. Now, do those look familiar? So, just like Calandris, he's saying stuff like aberrations offer potential, further study is necessary, but he's not actually saying the words, he's just saying whap, 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 whap. I do find it funny that we're literally seeing the words of what they're saying with what we're hearing just like their sounds. I'd like to know what the in-lore reason is for that. But you'll also notice those over there. Prototypes. They look rather familiar, don't they? So yeah, this led to the, like, revelation of, oh my goodness! Like, the Archon and, like, the Winter Queen and Denathrius and the Primus, they were all, like, robots? The prototype pantheon, bereft of the cosmic spirits of the Eternal Ones, these incomplete host bodies can only carry out their base directives without mercy or compassion. With the enemy at the gates, Lyovum has little choice but to activate these dangerous prototypes. So yeah, the actual pantheon are not actual, like, necessarily robots. Like, these are just simply host bodies that don't have the actual cosmic spirits of the Eternal Ones.
It's too far away.
But I want you to keep that in mind for when we get to the end of this raid, okay? Just keep that in mind. Keep that in the back of your head. Also, take note of these things here. This is something else I want you to remember when we get to the end of this raid later on. These stewards. Do you see these bodies they have? These robotic bodies? Remember this for later.
More aberrations. Their presence upsets the cycle.
The pattern must be restored.
Their strength harvested.
So this was an interesting council fight.
Weakness must be purged.
Gloombolt.
So Gloombolt had to be interrupted. He would summon these ritualists.
Exists to rot.
Gloombolt. Gloombolt.
We would have to go kill these ritualists because they would be doing that big thing on the ground over there in the middle.
Gloombolt.
Protect me!
Gloombolt.
She would summon Kyrians.
Gloombolt. Gloombolt.
To the Archon!
Gloombolt.
Some scars never.
Kyrion's
Carver's
resolve
death
is
touch.
unbreakable!
Gloombolt.
Nothing is sharper than a Kyrian blade!
Windswept wings.
So she would do that. And we were like, oh, crap! Get in the bubble! Get in the bubble!
Gloombolt. Gloombolt. Bastion's ward. Gloombolt. Bastion's ward. Rune Carver's death touch.
But that would mainly be essentially for these two, this portion of the fight.
Resolve is
Let the necrosis spread.
But once we got them down to about 50%, then we had to deal with the other two.
No absolution for you.
Burden
The
of Sin.
gravity of your sin falls upon
Wild
you.
Stampede.
beasts of
So-
the wild! Charge!
So she would cast Anima Bolt, which had to be interrupted.
Your corpse shall feed my children!
She would summon a stampede of wild beasts. We had to heal up these seeds.
Anima Storm.
Power, mortals!
So basically we stood in the way here. Ah!
Wild Stampede.
And the seeds would explode. It would do, like, she would summon that, like, tornado anima thing. Denathrius, or prototype of Absolution, would have Burden of Sin.
Thrash in
So this would
torment.
just be constantly getting inflicted on us. There's the tank mechanic, Racking Pain.
Wild Stampede.
Beasts of the wild!
I am the
Hand of
hand
destruction.
of your destruction.
And there's Hand of Destruction right there. He pulled us in. We had to get away from it before that happened. And so that's basically the mechanics of these two.
Wild Stampede.
Nature cannot be conquered.
So then here comes the fun part. Facing all four of them at the same time. Now, if a member of the Pantheon is defeated, they initiate a repair for 100% of their max health over 20 seconds. The cast is interrupted when all members of the Pantheon are defeated simultaneously. So you could just do one at a time because guess what?
My seeds wither, so
They would repair themselves, so we had to make sure that everybody's health went down at the same time.
charge!
Gloombolt.
Shameful defeat.
I remember thinking that fight was kind of fun, but it wasn't really like that much of a problem for us, honestly, when it came to progression. Like, once it was like, okay, we just have to, like, have certain people, like, the range DPS focus on the Primus, keep interrupting his cast. Same thing with the Winter Queen. tanks and melee focus on Absolution or Denathrius, as well as the Archon. And it was honestly, like, not bad. Like, the healers heal up the seeds. You know, like, basically everyone was able to handle their own duties here. You'll notice we're also facing quite a few of these automaton enemies. I like how Liavum is just like, oh, yes, please come inside so I can further analyze all of you. You are all fascinating. I want to analyze all of you. So this is fun. When we defeat that thing, whee! So that was always fun whenever we were trying to clear up this room and those things would explode and everyone would go flying just like, whee! It would cause some hilarious moments, including some hilarious deaths, because some would get blown over here and just fall to their deaths. It was actually really funny. So, Liavum, the principal architect. With meticulous care, Liavum weaves ephemera into being in accordance with the hallowed will of the First Ones. Now this process is threatened as Maul's sworn forces seek to claim this power. Liavum is like, look, guys, I'm just doing my job here, and you're interfering. Can you please let me do my job? Now, this fight was a little involved when it came to... You'll notice those things on the side there. Those are things that are going to be activated and brought to life as the fight progresses, as we're trying to deal with Liavum here. And there are going to be portions where we have to deal with those, and we can't actually fight Liavum. There is much to be learned.
Protoform Cascade.
So you had to make sure you didn't stand in that ring, because otherwise that would hurt,
Unstable
but...
mode. Unstable mode.
So that would
Deconstructing
be
energy.
unpleasant, because it would drop
Unstable
that field on the ground.
Cosmic shift.
Perhaps if the combatants are shifted. Whereas Halandras had these whomp 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 sounds, Liavum is a little bit more high-pitched, like... whomp, 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 whomp,
Synthesize.
Synthesize. These designs must be rigorously tested. So now is when he brings all these things online to have them face us, because he wants to test them. And he'd test us.
Synthesize.
Realignment. Surrounded by swirling cosmic energy. As we face off against a bunch of these ads right here. And of course, as before, that one will... No, it didn't launch, it just did damage. And so this was also usually a portion where we could be like, okay, quick, focus him, focus him. And that's mainly the fight.
Protoform Cascade.
Again, he would do this. You would be surprised how many people would just be like, ah! They wouldn't get out of the way of that ring.
Unstable mode. Unstable mode.
Like, if you were in melee range, it wasn't an issue. But if you were a ranged DPS, sometimes they just couldn't help but stand there and get hit by it.
Energy.
But yeah, what I've shown you is mainly the fight. It really didn't feel like a massive wall, at least for us on Heroic. It just did, took a little while to take him down.
Use the ciphers you carry at the translocator to build an arc across this chasm.
Ebonblade, to me! We march to save the king!
None for us demon hunters. Sad. Got a mace, a thinking cap, and a dagger. So now we can see that the transport automa has gone online, as now we are using it now. So this basically now opens up the way for us to go here. to Domination's grasp. Because now it is time for us to face off and try to save Anduin. You, of course, saw how Anduin was at the end of Sanctum, right? Controlled by Domination magic, Anduin is being forced to aid the Jailer's plan to remake reality. As time runs out to stop him, the champions of Azeroth must make a difficult choice. Defeat the young king to save the cosmos, or risk everything in order to restore his soul. This fight, woo! You talk about another wall in this raid. Anduin, my goodness. One of the things I love about this fight is that this is another one of those fights where I've talked about this in the past. I talked about in Battle of Dazar'lor how they used Jaina to try and show off the full possible potential and power of...
It is done. The final chamber of the Sepulcher opens before me. You were forged into a weapon to succeed where all others had failed. Now, one final purpose remains. Annihilate those who oppose me, and sunder your final tether to mortality.
The Jailer's hold is strong.
My hope is that Anduin's will proves stronger.
We must help him break free. I cannot fail again.
Oh, excuse me, I took a little drink there. But, you know how they used Jaina to show off, like, how powerful a Frost Mage can actually be in lore? What this fight to me is, this is them showing, this is what a priest can actually do when they are able to fully realize their power and potential and hold nothing back. We get to see, like, the full spectrum. Like, we'll see things that priests actually, like, are familiar with. You know, Force of Will. Wicked Star is an actual mechanic in this. Domination Word Pain! As opposed to Shadow Word Pain. But yeah, basically you're seeing stuff that a priest would have in the game, in lore, that he uses in this fight against us. Oh, and as a reminder, also Hopelessness, which is Halo. It even has the Halo logo there. Dark Zeal. But then, of course, we have to remind ourselves, this is not just Anduin we're fighting here. This is literally also the very last remnants of what remains of Arthas Menethil, of the Lich King. And you can tell, a fallen king. A remnant remains that will be part of this, using things such as Army of the Dead, Soul Reaper, and Remorseless Winter. You'll even see, there it is, March of the Damned, with the Lich King image right there. This was a crazy fight. And on Mythic also, this was another wall with a very famous kill that Liquid got, where they literally were down to their two tanks. The two tanks were down to, like, the last, like, oh gosh, what was it, like 2% of his health? And they were literally trying to finish him off to get the kill. And it literally came down to Scott, their Blood Decay, having to be the last man standing to take Anduin down for them to get that world first kill. It's one of the most famous and one of my favorite world first kills I've ever seen. It's one of those moments that you kind of live for as a player, being literally like the last person left alive in your raid group and helping get the kill when it looks like all hope is lost and you're going to wipe it, you're going to have to do the whole fight all over again, and you just need that last little bit of damage to help finish off, get the kill to, you know, for your guild, for your group, for your raid, you know, and you're able to be the one to finally get that killing blow after a lot of pulls and a whole bunch of time used to try and kill this boss, and you get it, and it's just that moment of elation where you just throw your arms up in the air and you're like, yeah! I love watching that kill, that clip. It was I think I saw it live, and I was just blown away. I imagine our Blood DK Jesse would love to have a moment like that. He would live for a moment like that. All Blood DKs and other tanks players would just like love they get that spotlight on them at the end, and they're like, "This is my moment right here to get the kill for my team after everyone else has died," you know. So I also love that we have some callbacks here. By the way, I love the armor that Anduin is wearing here. Again, it's part of that aesthetic I talked about, how I loved Sylvanas' armor in the previous one, and I've always liked the look of these armors, and I'm like, man, I want armors that look like this. I just think that those look so cool. And then, of course, the sword. Now, we know that that's actually Charlemagne, but it was turned into a Mornblade by the jailer, and it became known as Kingsmorn. So we will actually get to hear him say, remember I said that we're not just fighting Anduin here, we're fighting what's left of Arthas. We are going to actually hear him say, Kingsmorn hungers. This is a fun fight. It's a crazy fight, and people still have to do the mechanics correctly, but unfortunately, unlike with Kel'Thuzad, where I actually have Arthas up here tanking for me, I can't show you the other part of this fight, which is where you go downstairs and you have to kill the adds, because part of the reason for that is because when you get to this intermission, what you are getting is willpower, which is like aiding restores willpower. He consumes to empower players with force of will before manifesting the source of his domination, which is the remnant of Arthas. He grants players up to 200% increased damage done and 90% reduced damage taken based on the amount of willpower that is consumed. That's why we are going downstairs, and the only way we go downstairs is when we absorb the attack that he does with Kingsmorn Hungers, where he does this like big, I guess you could say like a pizza slice in front of him, and he will do that, and when it hits us, that's when it sends us downstairs, and we have to both DPS adds called Anduin's Despair, and the healers have to go down there, and they also have to we also have to do DPS Anduin's Doubt, but healers also have to go heal up Anduin's Hope. Doing all this is what gives us the willpower to deal with the intermission part of this fight.
Your reality ends here.
Hope Breaker. Domination Word. Pain.
So, of course, you'll see that Uther, Jaina, and Sylvanas are here helping us.
Domination Word. Domination Word. Pain.
So this barrier, you'll see, is a heal absorb, and the only way to get rid of it is to literally stand at it and soak it.
Blasphemy.
There is no
Domination Word. Domination Word.
So it's not showing, but when he does that right there is no balance. Blasphemy. What he would do is he would mark players with light and darkness. And you had to make sure... Okay, let me see what happens if I... Can I actually show this to you guys? I don't think I can. Nope, I can't.
Wicked Star.
So here comes the Dread Star.
Domination
Or not... Yeah, I'm sorry, the...
Wicked Star.
What was it called? The Wicked Star, excuse me.
Hope Breaker.
But Blasphemy would mark players with light and darkness, and if you mismatched, you would explode and die. So you had to get into contact with people of the opposite mark to cleanse yourself of that.
Domination Word. Pain.
So that was another thing there. It's like, okay, we have to make sure we match light and darkness. If we can't do the same ones, otherwise we blow up and die.
Hope Breaker. Domination Word. Domination Word. Pain.
Come on, Anduin, let's get to the intermission.
Hungers.
But yeah, there's the pizza slice.
Domination Word. Pain. Domination Word. Pain.
So yeah, I wish I could go downstairs and show it to you guys. I literally can't. If you do want to see what that was like, you can check out the LFR video I did on this fight when Shadowlands was current content. This was also a fight that I actually had to turn down the graphic settings of my machine,
Domination.
of the game on my machine, because this fight had a lot of visuals that just caused a lot of lag. There was so much lag in this fight.
Domination word. Pain.
A lot of the visuals just caused a lot of problems for players when it came to, like, the visuals and such.
Let me go!
So here's the intermission.
Don't give up, Anduin. We will not fail you.
What do you know?
Your existence was one failure after another, old man. At Anderholm, you failed your kingdom and your prince. Today, you fail not only the boy king, but your entire world.
So yeah, we can't damage Anduin during this, but we can damage the remnant of a fallen king, which of course looks like the Lich King. And all the damage that goes to this goes to Anduin. So the next intermission would be in another couple minutes. It would basically be the same thing with some more story elements, except for the fact that... Oh, also, we then had to deal with these. Grim Reflections. And these had to be interrupted because otherwise...
Domination word. Domination word.
They would cause a fear on the group. Also, we have Hopebreaker, which is causing us to take shadow damage every 2 seconds.
Word. Pain. Hopebreaker.
But yeah, this was a pretty tough fight. You'll notice that Anduin is pretty tanky. That's why we had to do most of our damage during the intermission, which is why when the intermission would happen, that's when we would basically save all of our cooldowns, because we also had the willpower buff,
Pain.
which would give us like an extra 200% damage done. And it would also reduce the amount of damage we took during that phase. But that was basically why it's like, okay, we now have this big damage buff. This is when we need to do all of our damage and focus it on the Remnant, because then Anduin takes all that damage.
The foul barrier.
Consumes light!
Wicked
Your
star.
end has come!
Domination.
Okay, so I can avoid the Wicked Star.
Grim reflections.
Arise and obey!
Domination word. Pain. Domination word. Pain. King's Morn hungers.
Hungers!
Wicked
Your
star.
end has come!
Wicked star.
I could have finished him off, but I honestly want to go ahead and show you guys the other intermission, mainly because I'm just wanting to show you guys the other story elements and what he says during that. Because you notice what he was saying. He was basically like...
Your end has come!
He was basically like
Domination.
trying to make Uther feel bad about all the things that happened back in the day, about how he failed Arthas and failed Anderhall and Lordaeron. Well, he's going to have some more to say in the next intermission, which is going to be coming up here in a few seconds.
I feel my soul slipping away.
Break his hold, Anduin! The strength lies
March
within
of
you!
the Damned.
What do you know of strength, betrayer?
March of the Damned.
You lacked the strength to protect your people as you fell before Frostmourne.
March of the Damned.
You are weak, Windrunner. And the weak
March of the
are
Damned.
made to serve.
March of the Damned. Necrotic Detonation.
But yeah, but by the way, this we absolutely had to avoid because they did a lot of damage. But yeah, Remorseless Winter is also damaging us, because of course it is.
March of the Damned. Beacon of Hope.
Save yourselves! End this!
Hope Breaker.
So this right here is why now this is basically the DPS check portion of the fight at the end here. Where he's now doing more things. He's doing Hopelessness. Where he intensifies the darkness, afflicting them with helplessness. It's the marks, once again. Empowered Hopebreaker, where he's going to continue to rise the stacks of the damage we're constantly taking.
Wicked Star.
This is why, like, at the end, when Liquid and Scott were trying to get this last bit of damage done, the fact that this kept going, that they were dealing with this check portion of the fight, just made it, like, more impressive, honestly.
Hopebreaker.
See? Another stack for Hopebreaker. No, 2 stacks of Hopebreaker. So yeah, Hopebreaker just keeps stacking. That time it was 2 stacks. The next one is going to be 3 stacks. And the next one's going to be 4 stacks. You get the idea of why this fight is insane. This honestly, and I think a lot of people have said this honestly could have been a great final boss of a raid, right? Like, this feels like the kind of fight that you would want to have as the big finale of a raid. And it's not. It's one of the, like, lead-up, like, final bosses, right? In fact, we're actually going to get a cutscene after this fight, which is usually reserved for the final boss fight, right? But no, this feels like a final boss fight, and it feels like we're actually getting a cutscene afterwards. And this, I think a lot of people have said, like, they probably don't need to do this anymore, where they put this kind of a wall, this kind of, like, final boss before the actual final boss here. So now we have 9 stacks of Hopebreaker. So yeah, now we're just going to go ahead and finish him off. Let's try to free Anduin! This is a great cutscene.
Do you not understand? This one is bound to me. Fulfill your final purpose. Annihilation. The fate of all who carry my blade. My son. This blade does not belong to darkness. It was forged by valor. And also by honor. Its legacy and ours are with you, even here. Now, let it be finished.
Is this all that remains of him.
The last flicker of his scarred spirit, consumed in the forges of the jailer.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act became you. That is my burden to bear. But your legacy is at an end. Be gone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade and be forgotten.
Waiting for this to, you know. Come on, game. Okay, so apparently that dialogue must have happened during the cutscene. I don't know why, but it shows here in the chat window that Anduin afterwards said, "You fought to save me. Thank you." Jaina said, "I would never give up on you, Anduin." Sylvanas said, "You need time to recover, but we must press on. The jailer has reached the final chamber of the Sepulcher. He is perilously close to victory." Anduin then says, "The consoles have been infused with the domination magic. They will subject anyone who tries to follow him." "There must be a way." "The answer lies within the mysteries of the first ones. Their secrets can guide our way forward, if forged by the proper hand." Alright, so let me take a moment to talk about that cutscene, because there's a few things to talk about there. So, oh man, that was awesome seeing both Varian and Varrock come back there to actually like help out Anduin there in that moment. Now, whether or not that was actually their souls there showing up to help him, that's debatable depending on how we would look at that scene. But, oh man, that's just an awesome moment. And I will say, of all the problems and gripes I have with Shadowlands, and I have plenty, one thing that I am okay with them carrying over into what is going on right now with the War Within is the trauma of what Anduin has had to be dealing with, and it carrying over. And they showed they basically showed the same thing we just saw in that cutscene in the cinematic for War Within when Thrall put his hand on him, and we had a flashback to what we just saw. It was just with the current look in the cinematic, which I thought was great. It looked great, and honestly, I was fine with them carrying over that moment as one of those moments that reminds Anduin of this horrible traumatic experience he's gone through, and why it would make sense that even years later, he'd still be dealing with how horrible this situation was. That he was basically like a victim of the Borg, where he's fully aware what's going on and what he's doing and being forced to do. He just can't do anything about it. He's literally being forced within his own mind to watch himself commit these horrible things that he would never do of his own free will, but he can't stop it. That's a horrible experience when you think about it. And I guess I'm just getting a little irritated by these people that say that Anduin is all like a wimp and, oh, he's a little baby and all this stuff. I'm like, do you really think you would easily get over such a horrible traumatic experience like that? I mean, if so, I don't know how to respond to that. Just, like, at some point, we all have to be reminded that we are all human, and we are all vulnerable, and we all suffer from horrible traumatic experiences like that. Like, I can't think of a single person that would just have something like that, horrible like that, happen to them, and they would just, whatever. Like, I just can't, that to me just doesn't feel human to me. To me, what Anduin has been going through since this feels very human. That's just my take on it. Now let's talk about the other part of that cutscene. The Arthas portion. So it was clarified that that's not necessarily the soul of Arthas, it's just simply a little remaining flicker of what was his soul. Basically, his soul is gone at that point. It's just simply a little fragment of what it used to be. It's basically a shell of what it used to be. So his soul is actually too scarred and too devastated to even exist anymore. It was just simply a little flicker, a little remnant of what it used to be. But I still feel like that scene shouldn't have been cast off or disregarded in the way it was, in terms of they're just like, oh, okay. And then Sylvanas is the one who gets the last few words, which I'm glad she got those words off to him. That off her chest, she got to say those final words. But why is she the only one who gets to say something to Arthas there? Why doesn't Uther get to say something more? Why doesn't Jaina get to say something more to him? Jaina is looking at the last remnants of the man that she loved. I read the Arthas book. Okay, those two had a full-on legit romance. They truly cared about each other. And it wasn't just like a lovey-dovey, like, teen romance. No, they truly loved each other. They were a true, like soulmates, basically. I could feel that as I read that book. And I could feel the devastation that they each had during the events of Warcraft 3 when they got separated and basically Arthas had what happened to him. And I could see the horrible little effect it had on Jaina. And it reminded me also of what she went through when she was dealing with that during Wrath. Remember when we went to the dungeon, the Hall of Reflection, and she told Uther, how can I slay my prince? And you could hear the pain in her voice as she said that, because you could tell she still loved him. So why doesn't she get to have some final words there to the last remnants of Arthas' soul there in those last moments? Why does she get to stay silent, while Sylvanas is the one who gets to have the final word? If that was truly meant to be like an actual send-off to what was remaining of Arthas, that should have gotten more characters involved in terms of saying their final words to him after everything that Arthas has had an influence over. Arthas has had such a massive impact and influence over so many people and so many things throughout this story. And yet, that is it? I know some people that hate Arthas and are more than happy with the fact that that's how he got treated and that he didn't deserve some kind of big send-off. I've let it be known that I'm not one of those, that I think that because I read, the Arthas book and saw what really happened to Arthas, that he was actually a hero and just as much of a victim, where he actually was, and he was even said in Wrath, Uther said this in Wrath, that the last remnants of who Arthas was literally preventing the Lich King from just simply sending out the Scourge and destroying all of Azeroth. That he was influencing the Lich King to try and get the plan to get us to come to Icecrown so that we could defeat him and save the world from the Lich King. So I've always considered Arthas a hero, and I wanted to save him when I saw he was cast into the maw. I wanted to save his soul and save him from that horrible fate. And that's the send-off he gets. Yeah, if I was having some kind of word or influence over how that cutscene would have gone, I would be okay with the idea that it's literally the last remnants of his soul, that his soul is basically gone. It's just a little flicker of what he used to be. That I'm okay with. But let's have more of these characters actually say something. Let Jaina say something, darn it! If you're going to have a send-off for a massively impactful character, you need to actually have it feel that way. And it certainly did to me in that moment. Anyways, let's actually continue, because we still have a jailer to stop.
Anywheres. Good fortune to our friends.
We have arrived at the most sacred of places. The very heart of the cosmic pattern.
The jailer will try to dominate our minds. Are you certain we'll be able to resist his power?
Of course! Well, in theory, that is to say, without proper testing.
Not exactly inspiring a lot of confidence there, Ferim. So before we can actually gain access to where the jailer is, there's a couple of, walls in between. Now you'll notice this right here. Bursting Dread. Upon death, the caster erupts in Dread and inflicts damage. Dread, huh? I wonder what could be causing that. Speaking of Arthas...
Your time is up!
Hello, Mal'Ganis.
You should have submitted.
So, you guys, of course, remember Mal'Ganis, right? You should. He was literally the first Dreadlord we have ever encountered.
It's too far away.
Back in Warcraft 3, he's the one that basically taunted Arthas into, and basically caused him to have what happened to Stratholme.
Survival is not an option!
Quintessa.
Terror shall claim you!
I need to get closer. I need to target something first.
At long last, the end of this wretched farce.
Using subterfuge and guile, the Nathrazim have worked for eons to bring the jailer's plan to fruition. Now on the brink of their master's victory, they only need to complete one final task to ensure that none are left to resist the new order of the cosmos. So, this was kind of a revelation. One that a number of us were like, what? When it was revealed. There was a book you could find. I actually made an entire separate video just about this book. And other people had made a video talking about the implications of this book, where it basically came across as if the Dreadlords, whose true master was actually Sire Denathrius, which as we know now, because of Nathria, was actually serving the jailer, that the Nathrazim were not only true servants of Sire Denathrius, but also of the jailer. And that they weren't actually like demons that were part of the Burning Legion. They actually infiltrated the Burning Legion to be a part of it and spy on the Legion forces on behalf of the forces here in the Shadowlands. They also did that with other forces of the cosmos, including the forces of the light. How many remember Lothraxion in Legion? You know, the Dreadlord who is part of the Army of Light? The book implied that he did that willingly to infiltrate them, that he's not actually part of the Army of Light, but that he is pretending to be, to spy on them on behalf of the forces of the jailer. So Mal'Ganis, who I remind you, we actually have not seen since Wrath. He shows up here revealing, because they also got, after we sealed Sardonathrius away in Revendreth after the Castle Nathria raid, they showed up and they broke him out. Now, they actually grabbed the sword and took him away. They didn't actually break him out of the sword. At least we didn't see that on camera. But they basically infiltrated. They went to Revendreth, took the sword, and took it away. So they basically saved their master from captivity. But yeah, they've been doing that on his behalf, on their behalf, this whole time. Needless to say, this is kind of a controversial point of lore amongst the player base. Some of us kind of thought it was interesting. Some of us didn't like the idea that this all of a sudden became, like, again, it goes back to the idea that the jailer's behind literally everything. And again, I'll rant about that when we get there. Now, I'm fine with Mal'Ganis here if they're going to have us have a boss fight of the true lords of the Dreadlords, which, by the way, the reason why this Demon Hunter is named Dreadneeks is because she's using what are labeled as the Dreadlord's horns there. You see that? That's why I named her that. But why Contessa? Like, we all know who Mal'Ganis is. Who the heck is Contessa? Like, why is she here? Why not Tichondrius? Why not Balthazar? Oh, wait, that's right, because we killed them back in Legion. But when you think about all the Dreadlords, all the Nathrezim that we have faced over the years, it's like this should be like the most well-known, named, and iconic Dreadlords here. So, of course, Mal'Ganis should be here. But Contessa? I, for the life of me, cannot even remember a single time we've ever seen Contessa. Unless she was around, I just never even noticed her, but that's the point I'm making. Mal'Ganis is the first Dreadlord we ever saw, so we all remember who he was because from Warcraft 3. Contessa may have shown up at some point, but it was probably so insignificant or unmemorable that we don't even remember who she is. So why have her here as part of this boss fight? I know I'm kind of ranting about this, but again, this just doesn't make any sense thematically to me that she would be here in this, what is supposed to be this final, ultimate confrontation with the Lords of Dread, you know? Okay, rant over. Let's talk about this fight. So first of all, this was a fight that I want to focus on back in the day, because not only did they drop Tier Shoulders for me, but they also dropped a Warglaive, which I, of course, wanted. But this fight, well, this fight was kind of nasty and quite crazy. The amount of stuff we had to deal with here, when it came to the amount of different kinds of damage that they would do to us. Man, the amount of damage that they would put out during this fight we had to deal with was crazy. But also the times where we had to make sure we popped our cooldowns to get the most damage out. Let me try and see if I can show off what I'm talking about here.
How fun! More playthings!
Cloud of Carrion. Cloud of Carrion.
So that's a poison that I could actually spread to other players.
Open veins.
That's an ad that would continuously get health back.
Let fear take
Fearful
control.
Cloud of Carrion. Open veins.
If we walked into that circle there, we would fall asleep. So that's what happens when it gets dispelled. It goes spread out and it hits players and it'll poison them. So a number of things you had to manage and avoid.
Fall to darkness!
Now here's the portion of the fight that we had to both mitigate lots of damage, but also do lots of damage, because while they're doing the swarm phase, they are taking 100% more damage. So, but they are also putting out lots of damage. So basically, this is where you would drop like your anti-magic shell, the anti-magic zone for the raid, my darkness, blur. You'd pop all your defensives, but you'd also pop all your offensive cooldowns.
Open veins. Fearful Cloud of Carrion.
Because of course they are taking a lot more damage.
Manifest Shadow. Cloud of Carrion.
Like, it looks rather, like, not that bad or simple here when it's just one person, but in a full group, trust me, the amount of stuff here, like the carrion, the poison, the swarms, the darkness, like, again, if I walked into this, I would be forced to fall asleep. There was a lot when it came to, like, managing, like, this fight and the cooldowns and timing your cooldowns correctly, because we had to make sure we did it for the swarm phase to get the most damage out, otherwise we would be here longer than we needed to. Oh, and by the way, they don't share health, as in, like...
Infiltration of Dread.
Oh! That part right there. So I can't show it off, but basically, they would do Among Us. They would all of a sudden like disappear, and it would be infiltration. They would like then inhabit someone in the raid. So we would have to look around and see. It would basically be what I talked about when it came to Skitra back in Nyalotha, where we had to look and see. Like, everyone had to be like, okay, I see Mal'Ganis on such and such. But it couldn't just be one person. Basically, everybody had to see. So what we came up with was a weak aura, where we would actually, like, mark somebody or press a button to indicate who we saw on who. And the majority of people that saw a Dreadlord on somebody in the raid, we knew that that's who they were infiltrating, so we'd have to DPS them. So that way, by the way, that's another thing, it would disorient me right there. But we would then have to focus that person, so that way we could make sure that they actually, you know, got free from being, you know, the Among Us, the traitor amongst us, you know? But yeah, if that, you can see here, Infiltration of Dread. If their disguises were not found, to defeat within 40 seconds, they would erupt and do Shattered Mind, which was basically a wipe there, because it would just do a bunch of damage and stun us for 3 seconds, and would keep doing damage to us until we died.
Open veins.
So yeah, that's why we had to get that down, otherwise it was just straight up a wipe. There's the Disorient again.
Incomplete form. Open veins.
But yeah, this is basically the fight. So when one of them dies, they would then do something else once they died, and you can see here he's basically pulsing out damage. So that's why you want to basically kill them at the same time, because if you didn't, well, then you'd be taking a whole lot more damage. You can see it's literally like Rampaging Swarm. It's stacking every second. This is why you couldn't just kill one of them and then like have a, you know, you had to kill them basically at the same time. These ciphers changed when the jailer's lackey was defeated. They appear to be a barrier encryption. Gloves. Oh hey, there's the other warglaive I never got. Woo! I have them all now. There's the tier shoulders. Okay. So now we have to go back to the other side. I remember us wiping on that boss quite a bit. Mainly because of us trying to make sure we got the Among Us part of the fight down correctly, of learning to manage our cooldowns, how to deal with the carrion swarms, managing those ads. Like, there was a lot to deal with in that fight. Now this next fight was actually quite interesting. And I distinctly remember it being one of those interesting races that had a rather famous... Oh. Man, these things had an absurd aggro range.
I'm out of range.
Rygalon.
You are known to me, champions of Azeroth. Your deeds have unbalanced the harmony of the cosmos. For reality to endure, it must be remade. But you are nothing more than aberrations to be discarded.
Drawn to observe the fateful events unfolding within the sepulchre of the First Ones, Rygalon succumbed to the jailer's domination. Now this constellar turns its cosmic power against any who would oppose the Banished One. This was certainly quite a fight. I remember in the Race to World First, one of the reasons why Echo was able to pull off getting this and getting to the jailer after this fight was there was a lot to deal with when it came to healing this fight and the damage that was also needed because it was also a big DPS check. And they were doing 5 healers at the time. So they then decided we're going to go ahead and go with just 4 healers and add in an extra DPS to meet the check. At the time, it seemed kind of nuts because of the amount of damage that this fight put out, that they needed the extra heals, but they realized they needed the extra damage to meet the check, so they did it. And some people were like, oh man, this is insane that they're actually doing this. And they pulled it off. But yeah, this is one of the big reasons why. Massive bang. And this happened after a certain portion of time, which was not very long. But yeah, this fight was actually kind of crazy. The amount of stuff that we had to deal with in this fight.
All possible outcomes result in your demise.
You see those unstable matters out there?
Dark Eclipse. Celestial
Reality.
Collapse.
Can you see those right there?
Upon realities.
Manifest
Through
Cosmos.
death will come order.
Also, you'll notice how he's attacking us. Remind you of anybody? With the 2 dual-wielding weapons. Also, look at this right here. You see this?
Collapse is inevitable.
You would then have to go down here to this extra part of the phase and try to deal with these things to try and make sure that it didn't cause a big explosion, which would basically wipe the raid.
Be eliminated.
Massive
Witness the fury of the cosmos.
Huh. He's actually going to kill me, isn't he? Yep.
There is no universe in which you prevail.
Okay, so I mainly just wanted to show that off to you guys, that even here, that could happen. So yeah, I was just kind of wanting to show off that fight a little bit. But yeah, I've heard some say that looking back, they thought this was a pretty well-designed fight, and yeah. I think that they're not really far off or wrong on that. I think this is actually a pretty excellent fight. But what I was basically hinting at is if you look at how he's attacking me, it kind of reminds you of someone else who kind of has a similar kind of, like you'll notice, look at his legs there, right? He's a constellar. He's wearing domination armor, but he is a consular. Doesn't that remind you of, this guy? Yeah.
All possible outcomes result in your demise.
That's right, he's got the time stone. He's looked into all possible futures, just like Doctor Strange.
Realities folding upon realities.
So we would DPS each of these so we could go to the downstairs portion of the fight to try and help make sure that we did all these, as well as the unseeable matters, to try and make sure we avoided the Big Bang.
Dark Eclipse.
Because that was one of the reasons why you would die to that mechanic. Not to mention all these other things as well, the corrupted wounds and all that stuff.
Manifest Cosmos. Event Horizon.
Eliminated. You fail to see what is coming.
The jailer must be there.
Did I never actually kill him on Heroic? Maybe I didn't. I thought for sure I had killed him at some point. I guess maybe I didn't. I mean, I did have to join a pug to get my AOTC on the jailer, so maybe we actually never killed him. I remember us constantly trying and pulling him, but I guess we never actually killed him back then. Alright, so now the way to the jailer has opened.
I have many lucky doos you like. Farewell, friend of the Grummels.
What? Wait a minute. Oh, I went the wrong way. Silly me. Got all turned around. My bad. Kelmortos, the chains of death. Hey guys, glad of you to finally join me over here. Huh. Thanks for the air support, Jane and Thrall.
The way is open. Prepare yourselves. The jailer is sending his Marsworn against us.
We must hold them here. Champions, take the fight to the jailer.
And there he is, awaiting us.
Can your mortal minds fathom how long I have waited? Every event set in motion, every pawn put into play, all to claim the power slumbering within your world. The soul of eradicate this flawed reality. Death claims the soul of your world. Now, bear witness, mortals, to eternity's end.
So first of all, you're telling me that the Forge of Souls back in Wrath was meant for this the entire time? That the Ice Crown Glacier inside the Citadel was also made for this? Like, okay, developers, writers of Blizzard, you're gonna have to really sell me on that, you know? Because at that point, I'm just like, what? Like, I'm not buying it at that point. For untold millennia, the jailer patiently unfolded his plan to reach the heart of the Sepulcher. Now, poised upon the precipice of his final victory, the heroes of Azeroth must rally to prevent the jailer from dominating all of reality. Can you tell, like, through the text here that they are really trying to sell us on this? They are trying so hard to sell the players on this. Like, as if this is supposed to be the ultimate confrontation and battle for us. Because this is, again, the guy that is supposed to be the one that has been responsible for all these. This is all these things that have happened. This is the guy that apparently has been playing 7th dimension chess for so many thousands of years while being chained up. He's had all these things, like, in motion, and it just doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense. I've seen numerous videos of people trying to somehow, like, explain or even point out how ridiculous this notion is that Blizzard was really trying to sell, that this is the guy responsible for everything. Like, what? I'll rant a bit more about this after we beat him when you see who he really is, or rather what he really is under that armor. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about this fight. So this fight, this fight. So one of the main things about this fight that I definitely remember and everybody remembers was, of course, mind control, because he's all about domination, right? So he imposes his will on the world around him, dominating players and pylons within line of sight. He would dominate a player, mind-controlling them, and increasing their health and damage done, and takes control of their actions. So he would also cause you to just simply walk over to the edge and jump off. Just like Zool back in Old Year. There was a number of other things involved in this fight. The Rune of Damnation, Torment, Chains of Oppression. Yeah, I remember some of these mechanics. The Unholy Attunement, where he rose the pylons into alignment, causing them to spread unholy ground. Yeah. Desolation in stage 3, Eternity's End, where he would launch a deadly attack on Azeroth. That back there is representing Azeroth, and we're actually going to see a health bar for Azeroth on the top of the screen, reducing Azeroth's life force by up to 20%. Each player in the area of effect would reduce the damage to Azeroth, but they would suffer damage. So you would have to soak that to prevent Azeroth from dying, because if Azeroth dies, well, obviously the raid wipes. It's a wipe, and we gotta try it again. Oh, man. There was actually, it was revealed when we got to this portion that there was a secret phase or secret mechanic involved in this during the Race to World First. I also want to talk a bit about something else here. Now, you'll notice he's got some other really interesting things here. He's got this neck, World Killer Iris, which has crit, haste, and mastery. It's a pretty good neck. He's also got a couple of other trinkets here, Chains of Domination, and Scars of Fraternal Strife. I had this trinket. This was interesting, the way this would work, where you would put a domination rune on yourself and you gained power, but at a price. And you would keep doing it until you got to, like, I think 4 of them, and then you would get a massive buff, but then you would take a whole bunch of damage after a period of time. It was actually kind of a fun trinket to use, I remember that. But the thing I want to talk about is this right here. This weapon. The Gavel of the First Arbiter. My Death Knight ended up getting this weapon. I have this Mog. The thing about this weapon, it was absurdly powerful. It was one of the most overpowered weapons this game has ever seen, and even when Dragonflight showed up, people were still using it while it was still able to be used until they deactivated it, because it was still absurdly strong. So, it provided strength and stamina and no other stats, but what it did is it removed a target's soul to receive a final judgment. Slaying the soul would send it to the afterlife it truly deserved, granting you a twisted boon for 60 seconds based on assassination, and it was a 4-minute cooldown. They then put this required level 60 or below to use it, because they didn't want people to keep using it in Dragonflight, because it was still absurdly strong, because some of the effects you would get from the souls thing were absurdly strong, powerful buffs. This weapon has gone down as one of the most overpowered weapons that this game has ever seen. It was so absurdly strong. If you got one of these, you were in a fantastic place. My Death Knight had it, and I loved it. It was really, really strong. But let me see if I can show off this fight. I will say, it's possible I could wipe a couple times this fight because of either mind control or, like, so one of the ways you would actually get the pillars to actually rise up, you see these holes here, you can actually just fall through to your death in these holes here, these honeycombs, as it were. He would put a bomb on you, and you would have to jump into this pillar at a certain time. If you jumped in too early, you wouldn't get back up enough to save yourself because the bomb would explode and send you up into the air. So if you just stood right here and the bomb went off, you would go way up into the air and then fall to your death. So the idea was you had to jump in at a certain time. If you jumped in too early, you would still take a lot of fall damage. If you jumped in too early or too late, you wouldn't get back up and you would just fall to your death. So you had to time it correctly. But that was the only way to then get the pillars to rise up for people to get behind to avoid line of sight of his domination so they wouldn't get mind controlled. That was one of the big main things of this fight that we had to deal with.
I will claim what is mine.
By the way, funny story, somebody once got him, and they fixed this, it was a bug, where he actually walked through and fell through that hole to his death. It was hilarious. And people were just like, oh, hey. Now, it actually reset the encounter, but they were joking, like, hey, does this mean we get AOTC?
4.
Because he fell to his death? It was actually really funny. So let's see if I can time this right. Whee!
Martyrdom.
So there's the pillar. There's the tank combo. Come on, jailer.
Chains of
Die
oppression.
at my feet.
Oppression. Where he's pulling us in.
Room damnation.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Relentless domination.
Dominates all.
So that's the mind control.
Torment.
Of course, as a demon hunter, I didn't have to worry that much about the, the fall damage from the bomb, but I needed to make sure I got the pillar up to help other people out to get the pillar to avoid the line of sight for the bomb, or for the mind control. Now, I didn't... Oh, there we go, the pillar still came up. Alright.
Chains of oppression.
There is no escape.
Room damnation.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Torment.
Rupture.
Relentless domination.
Dominates all.
Martyrdom.
You cannot withstand my power.
I'm trying to remember when he gets to the next phase.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I forgot about the bomb.
Die at my feet.
Relentless domination.
The first ones is now mine to wield.
Got behind the pillar just in time there.
tyranny. Unholy
The
attunement.
pattern submits to my
Torment.
rage.
Decimator.
Extermination.
Torment. Unholy attunement.
There's the unholy attunement, which put those over there. Trying to remember when he gets to, oh, here it is.
I plotted to break this flawed cycle, to forge a new cosmos, dominated under my will. The soul of your world defies me. No matter, it cannot save you.
Decimator.
Extermination.
So then you get a boon from Azeroth where you get a massive buff to your stats.
You touch is defiled.
You'll notice also her health keeps going up. I think that's in place for those of us who are doing this solo.
Desolation.
Azeroth is mine to consume.
Torment.
Alright, now watch this.
This must not be.
You have betrayed your duty as Arbiter, and shall be bound forevermore. Your madness has threatened the cycle of life and death entire.
You could have sought another way, brother. Imagine what we could have accomplished together.
Why, Zoval? What drove you to this end?
You preserve that which is doomed. A cosmos divided will not survive. What is to come?
This I could have accepted a number of different possible, like, explanations here at the end in terms of them trying to somehow defend or justify this thing they kept saying about how he is the one behind everything. But this reveal here, there's nothing they could say to me at this point that would defend this. You're telling me that this... Remember how I was pointing out that those stewards we were seeing earlier were basically had those bodies? Doesn't it look like the exact same thing? So you're telling me that one of these things, one of these machines, one of these robots, is what is responsible for everything that has happened? This thing right here? Oh, and of course... I of course, just love the fact that they, once again, were teasing this. By the way, there's something even worse on the way. They always do this. They always have this cliffhanger tease at the end of something even worse is on the way. Don't you just get sick and tired of that? Of them just constantly doing this? Something worse is coming. Something worse is on the way. We don't know what it is. We're not going to tell you what it is, but it's worse than what you've faced. Ugh. Trust me, I am not the only one that is tired of that. I've seen plenty of reactions to this cutscene where people were saying the exact same thing. But it's this right here. the idea that it's this thing that is actually responsible. Like this, I guess, robot who apparently found out this knowledge and had a revelation. Like, this is like... I'm trying to come up with a comparison on how to, like, why this is such an issue for me. Because it's not necessarily the tease that it's because something worse is on the way, and if we weren't united, we wouldn't survive. That's not necessarily... I don't have as much of an issue with that as I do with this right here. That the jailer this entire time was just some, like, robot, like a Terminator, under all that skin, that was just trying to... Who apparently, you know, he used to be the Arbiter. Okay, fine, whatever. But this thing is what came up with all these plans and put all these things in motion, and is the one that has been playing, like, 7th dimensional chess and all that. This thing... I hate this. I absolutely hate this. I despise this. I hate this revelation. Whoever's idea this was, like, if they ever see this, I'm sorry, but I think this is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Oh, hey, the gavel dropped. By the way, in case you're curious, that fight is really not that hard to do on Mythic nowadays, so I would say just feel more than free to come here and solo him on Mythic to have a shot at the mount he drops. If you're wondering what the mount is, it's this right here. I'll be honest, like, it's a cool looking mount, but it's not really the one I want to get. The one I really want to get is the one from Sylvanas. This one right here. So I will definitely be going back and farming Mythic Sanctum to try and get this mount. I'll probably also be doing Mythic Niloth at some point as well, but obviously I want the skip set up so I can do that, while of course collecting more pieces from those raids. But I think it's because of this revelation that this raid ends up putting a bad taste in my mouth with this revelation here. I don't think we've gotten any confirmation on what exactly the threat was he was talking about, of what is to come, that made him think we had to all unite under death, which is essentially what the Lich King was doing, but that was to stop the Burning Legion on their way. What was the jailer uniting us against? The Legion? No, that's not a case anymore, because Sargeras has been taken down. The Legion is no more. So what is he referring to? The more I see this now turned off automaton here that's responsible for everything, the more it just irritates me. That this thing was apparently responsible for all this stuff. This is one of the reasons why, for many of us, Shadowlands is one of the worst and most hated expansions we have ever had in this game. Not just because the jailer was a terrible character, but then this revelation here of, like, you can even go back and see a lot of people put out a lot of reaction analysis videos about this and that cutscene we just saw after was first came out. Because this was a revelation that, like, including myself, upset a lot of people, and I don't blame them in the slightest. Sepulcher of the first ones will go down probably as one of the most difficult raids, because the Race to World First did take a long time. This was a grueling, difficult raid back in the day when it was current. And then the revelation here at the end, it just didn't have a feel-good moment. It left a lot of sour taste in people's mouths. Alright, I said that wrong. It left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths after finishing this raid and beating this boss, seeing this revelation. Myself included. Like, I see this and I'm just like, I get very resentful towards this raid and this fight and everything. You know? Ugh. Ugh. So that's Sepulcher, the first ones. I mean, as a whole, the raid isn't bad. It was grueling and tough back in the day, especially like the last few bosses, and of course the other couple of walls like Anduin and Halandris. But man, story and lore wise, like other than the really cool moment with Varian and Varrock helping Anduin, ugh. We were very eager to move on from the Shadowlands and hope that what was coming later would be better. Fortunately, what would be coming up in the future would be a much better turnout for us, both gameplay-wise, because they finally started listening to us and made the game more friendly to the players in terms of respecting our time, as well as being alt-friendly, although that would more so become the case when we get to War Within. But it definitely started to happen in Dragonflight. Shadowlands got a lot of negative reaction from the player base, and Blizzard both heard and felt it. Not to mention also there was, of course, the monumental, events that were happening at Blizzard with the allegations and the big, massive, like, cleaning out over there of people that were over there, including those who were involved in those allegations, and bringing new leadership in, which would eventually lead to, of course, Bobby Kotick leaving and Microsoft buying them. And, like, Shadowlands was one of those, like, it truly helped get the ball rolling, but it just so also happened to be the time when those things happened. And basically, because Shadowlands got such a negative backlash, heading into Dragonflight, Blizzard was clearly trying to see if they could make amends and make things better. And I would say that they succeeded, since a lot of people's reactions to Dragonflight was much more positive than what it was in Shadowlands. But we will get there when we do someday. And I have no idea how long this is going to take, but eventually, when we return to this series, we'll be heading into Dragonflight. Stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys next time.